My name is Ian Pogson, and for those of you who haven't met an ambassador before, you've got one stood in front of you now. It says so there, look. But Ferrero Rochers are an option, I'm told. And a lot of you will be too young to remember that advert. I won't be speaking for too long today because of my throat. Apparently last year when I was up here I overran a bit, and Sammy says if I do that again she's going to cut it. So just to give you a brief rundown, my experience in this industry goes back some time, but I have no formal qualifications. I'm not an agronomist and I'm not a soil scientist. But during the course of the 50 years I've been in the industry, I've spoken to some very learned gentlemen along the way, and I've gleaned a little bit of knowledge hither and yon. And what I've tried to apply throughout my career is a modicum of common sense. Now, my wife would disagree with that thoroughly, but common sense is not a plant that grows in everybody's garden these days, and I'm sure you'll agree. Now, what I will be doing during the course of this seminar is to probably play devil's advocate to some degree. And last year when we talked, we did it on decompaction and aeration, and the theme throughout was think differently. We want to continue with that theme, thinking differently, but as one very eminent groundsman said to me many, many years ago, he said, if you've got a problem, get rid of it. So we're going to couple the think differently to, if you do have a problem, get rid of it. But first of all, what I'd like to do is just go through the company provenance, just to let you know where we're coming from. Now, the company was born 30 years ago. We're in our 30th year, and it's based 20 miles south of Manchester, in a little town, a little village, Marton. And the boss's background was he worked for Sysis, and then he went into contracting, doing small stuff, bowling greens, cricket wickets and out things. And it's really grown from there. We are principally a sales-based organisation. We don't have any manufacturing facilities, but we have the equipment made, and we're a big part of the development of that. We work very closely with the likes of yourselves, groundsmen, course managers, supervisors, innovative ideas, and we have a strong input into the design and the development of all the machines. We invest heavily in development, and as a result, most of our products are heavily patented, principally just to try and prevent other people copying what we do. It doesn't altogether eliminate it, but that's something that for another day, really. We have ongoing discussions with practically all aspects of the industry to try and keep one step in front. And if anybody here has a good idea that they think's worth developing, then, excuse me if I keep moving, that light's sort of quite bright in my eyes. I'm not trying to escape yet. If anybody's got any good ideas that they think it's worth developing and going on, or there's a machine that is designed at the back of your mind to do a specific job, then you want to come and talk to us. For every 10 ideas you get, you might get one that is practical. Also, you have to bear in mind the cost of development. Realistically, you need to be talking about unit numbers as well. Our head office here started off in a small dairy 30 odd years ago, and there's just a view of where we are today. And when it talked about product brands and innovation, these are the range of products that we like to market. And one of the strong feels that is with us is that we actually take the message out to the people. We do spend a lot of time travelling the world with a couple of big lorries, loads of equipment, and we do believe that it is important that we take the message to the people. We've talked about innovation and imitation, but one of the things that we like to bear in mind is the 3 E's, that we're like evangelists, that we go out and preaching the British way to groundsmen all over the world. It's part and parcel of education and encouragement and product training, and we have had a great deal of success. Here we have some of the machines that assist in what I was doing. We're looking at things like the recycling dresser, top dressers, the current blue chip machine in our market is Air2G2, that's the one on the far right, you can see up there. The field top maker is the one I think that we're best known for in the sports turf market. The Vrido Seeder, which we market, we've just started to sell them into North America, and the linear decompactor, the Shockwave. So, get the company provenance out of the way, and here we have it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, I'm not a religious man. This is a quote here from Genesis, and that's not the pop band. In 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. Then he created man, and Adam was his name. And in a moment of mischief, he then created a woman, because he didn't want Adam to be happy for long. And everything in the Garden of Eden, if we are led to believe that all is right, it was all sticky buns and snuddy cakes and everybody was happy. Except he created the ability to play golf, and there along came the greenkeeper. But my best friend came also, Poa annua. It's the best little plant in the world because it keeps us all in business. Without that, none of us here would have a job because it'd be dead easy. It also produces an awful lot of thatch, particularly in the way that we treat it in acidic soils. And it's all soft thatch, and our current management techniques utilise fertilisers and growth stimulants. They do tend to exacerbate the situation. It isn't just golf that suffers. It goes on throughout the whole sports turf market. There is a consideration here that with my machinery hat on, I can say without any shadow of contradiction that the overuse of sand that is distributed close to the surface or to an inappropriate depth does contribute to the proliferation of Poa annua. Now, if you want an example, when you've got a block paved drive, when you put sand in the joints, what's the first thing that appears? My little mate comes along and it infiltrates it. There's a picture of my drive. Much to the wife's disgust, I should be down there pulling their weeds out, apparently. So if we have a problem, get rid of it. So we'll start off for the brave ones. And despite all our accomplishments, we owe our existence on this planet to 6 inches of topsoil and the fact that it rains on a regular basis. Nature takes care of the rest, or it did. That's quite an interesting little cartoon I saw somewhere. For those of you who can't read at the back there, well, it's your fault for sitting back there really, but so you don't just dig through the soil consuming nutrient from decaying organic matter. That actually makes a lot of sense. And that's the early bird that catches the worm. But you also have to consider it's the second mouse that gets the cheese, and that's where we come in. These are our methods of thatch control. Initially, we have the standard scarifying reel that's been tried and tested over a number of years. Choice of either 3mm or 1.5mm blades, all tungsten tipped. The brushes are there to help generate a clean surface, because one of the things that we're particularly keen on, and it's a recurring theme throughout the talk, is the surface hygiene. The second one is one of our new patented rotors, and that's for a complete clear out of any grass surface down to about a couple of inches, 3 inches. And that's called a TerraPlane reel. And then last but by no means least, the one top right was developed for the use on hybrid surface throughout the soccer and rugby markets. The hybrid surface, for those who are just questioning it, it's the Desso Grassmaster SIS, Hero Turf, Extra Grass, and all the other types of stabilised sports turf surfaces. But we realised when we developed this rotor how much use it could be in other areas. For example, with the removal of Poa with different sized blades. More of that later. It's 4 or 5 years ago now, we were asked by virtue of an experiment, to go to a golf course that had been out of use for quite a number of years, and it's virtually gone back to nature. And the fellow who bought it decided that he wanted to bring it back into use. Now, as you can imagine, when you've got all that fine turf all over the place, does anybody know where I'm talking about? Yeah? Yeah, yeah. And it had gone back to nature, and it was full of power, and it was full of thatch, and it was in a shocking state. We thought it was a good idea if we went down there with all our range of equipment and invited everybody in the Grandma over the 3 wettest days of the last 10 years. We were saturated from the lunchtime on the Monday when we got there till we left on the Thursday. But what we did is took off about 40 mil of the surface. Now, this is playing the devil's advocate. If you've got a problem, get rid of it. They had a problem, we got rid of it for them. We took it all off. You can see how deep we went, and you can see on there that there is still quite a lot of organic matter, but mainly that is down to the root. That's sort of a really heavy-duty phrase mowing. But all this stuff was taken over to a dump for composting. Once we'd done that, we have to go through and do the decompaction and aeration. It's pointless just leaving the surface there. What you need to do is open it up, let it breathe before you do anything further. Now, we hadn't got Air2G2 in those days, but what we had got was the recycling dresser and the shockwave. We don't punch holes in the ground, for the simple reason is that all you're doing is making a hole. So what you need to do is to open the ground up, a linear aeration, move the ground from side to side, make sure that you are actually doing something down there, leaving the soil compaction down to the drains. It's no good putting drains in if the water can't get through to the drains. And over a period of time, with trampling all over these surfaces, what you do end up with is a compacted layer, and by using a penetrometer, you can find that compacted layer quite easily. If it's compacted, 2 to 4 inches is usual for foot traffic. Any more than that, if you get thatch on top, the water can't get through the thatch, so it's not going to get to the drain. So what we need to do is to move the soil around. So this is what we did. And then we went on to the next phase, which was, there again, you can see on the left the recycling dresser. What that does is bring up all the nutrient-rich soils below the surface and redistribute it onto the top. And after we'd done that, that comes back to surface hygiene. After we'd done that, then the surface is ready for either a drag mat, something, then you can start to overseed. But this theme of surface hygiene, if you're disturbing a lot of poor annua, the shorter you cut it, the shorter the flower. So you've got a lot of seed in the surface. If you're going to agitate that with a piece of high-speed iron and put sand on immediately, what you're doing is creating an environment in which that seed will chit, and you will end up with an even bigger problem. So what we like to do is to get the whole of the lot away. That's what we call a hygienic surface, where 99% of the material that you've phrase mowed off or dug off goes into the trailer, and with it, the biggest proportion of seed. Now, when you're composting it, by turning it regularly and keeping it oxygenated, I'm not trying to teach my grandmother to suck eggs here, but it's just sort of mentioning it in passing, that it will kill the majority of the poor seed. But don't worry, we've got plenty in the back of the car that we can spread. 12 months later, this is the sort of fairway that they had. We didn't do every fairway. We did most of the greens, tees and approaches, but we did some sections of the fairway, and by continually scarifying and carting the scarifications away, this is the sort of job that he ended up with. It was a fairly long course, and the climatic conditions weren't conducive to doing what we did. But you're there, you've invited people to see it, so we had to go ahead. And in certain areas, with continually running on it with tractors and trailers and all the other equipment that we use, we did end up with some patches which were less than good. But The course manager managed to have a reasonable late spring and eliminate a lot of those problems. And believe me, it did look a picture 12 months later. Now, I know that most of you can't afford to wait 12 months, close your course for 12 months, you're going to be all out of a job, aren't you? But this is, again, playing the devil's advocate. This is what is possible. And it doesn't have always to be done at once. We did another one in Naas in Ireland, where he has a programme in place over 10 years where he wants to try and dull most of his fairways, where he's got big patches of very high organic matter close to the surface. And we did this. Again, this has been done with the Terraplane rotor, which is a complete clear out. This removes everything. This is the one that we tend to use on most football pitches and rugby pitches and the like. So we're taking everything away. But what this gentleman did it in sections. So he selected his worst section, 150 metres, I believe it was, by about 12, and he just took it all out. Just excuse me while I look. Yeah, it took 120 metres by 20 metres out down a fairway. And this was done principally as an exercise, just to see how well it would work. Decompaction, after we'd done that with a shockwave, I don't think they used a recycling dress that they may well have done, and then top dress and drill in to the seed. We don't believe in feeding the birds. We use disc seeders wherever possible. I'm wrong, he did use a 220 shockwave, and some of it was done with a recycling dresser as well. He overseeded it with 35 grams of rye fescue mix per square metre. He used 100 kg of nitro to grow it in, and on top of the decompaction there was 3 mil of top dressing. And that's what it looked like when we'd finished. And within, you can see that pen and that coin is there just there to give you an idea of the scale. But that was 12 days later. And there's another shot, just taken from a different angle. And there he is, cutting it after 12 days. Climatic conditions obviously vary from area to area. With kind weather and a little bit of luck on your side, you could probably get away with even less than that, or use a pre-germ seed, which incidentally you wouldn't put through a disc seeder. So there we have the done and the undone. And it was fully back in play within 12 weeks. Now, initially, we were told that he had quite a large number of complaints from the players, the club members, over the disruption to their daily round or weekly round of golf, which is understandable to some degree. But once he'd got over the first hurdle of doing this, and it would grown back in after 12 weeks, we were told that quite a number of golfers had gone into the clubhouse and said, when are you going to start and do the rest? So it's a matter, like a lot of your jobs is these days, you've got to play the politics game. You've got to get the members on side to allow you to make the changes that you all feel that you need to do. And that's been a major problem. Then if you've got to go to the committees and work your way through it, then that's something that you have to do. But both the course manager and the secretary were complimented on the work that had been done. And it was nothing magic. I mean, it wasn't anything that was really difficult. We also did a job in Switzerland at this Bloomsburg Golf Club. Now, this is with one of the old digging rotors, the standard back-to-back rotivator blade type machine. The surface hygiene is not quite as good as the modern rotors, but it's the same application to what we were doing. And it's a fellow called Richard McGlynn, and he's got, again, I think it's about a 10-year program in place where he's going to do probably half a fairway, let it grow back, and then do another half a fairway somewhere else. Another one that had to go to his committee and say, this is what your problem is. You've got 4 inches of thatch. It's wet in the winter. It's dry in the summer. It doesn't give a true bounce. You can't play running golf on it. We need to do something serious, and this is something serious. It gets rid of the problem. But you've got a fair bit of disruption. There's nothing you can do about it. You either put up with what you've got, or you take hold of the problem and get rid of it. I've got a breakdown of what the actions were and the timescale. If anybody's interested after and want to come and have a look at it, then be my guest. So what he did, he cleaned it all off. He shockwaved it up to about 15 inches with a linear decompactor, 2.2 metre one. Then seeded, again using a disc seeder. So we don't feed the birds too much. You put the seed in the growing environment, and it does actually speed up the regrowth to a great degree. This gentleman took out sections of the golf course rather than obliterating it like we did at Birch Grove. That didn't matter too much because there was only one golfer that used it. So I think they had a busy day once and there were 3 of them. Again, there was some objection from the members because they couldn't go out and play to the areas, but it was overcome, again, when the results became apparent. And I think you'll all agree that if you get the players on side by doing a small experimental area, in future it makes it much easier when you want to do a major job. But it's progression, I think, rather than doing it in one major hit, and this is the growing period. And by corrowing all the rubbish off and getting rid of it, it does aid a much more rapid turnaround. If I give you a good example, when we're doing a sports stadium, if we go into one of the major stadiums, you can do the work with the right number of staff and tractors. You can do the work in a couple of days. Within 6 weeks, you'll be playing first-class soccer on it again. And that's because you're taking all the rubbish away. Everything's going out. Goes out into the car park and then away. And it doesn't matter what sort of surface it is, whether it's a hybrid surface or a fibre sand or fibre elastic or whatever else. If you clean all that organic matter out once a year, there have been, Arsenal, for example, down at the Emirates Stadium, turned their pitch round in 4.5 weeks because of their corporate responsibilities to all the season ticket holders and debenture holders. They allow them to play on it at the end of the season. And they have about 10, 15 five-a-side matches going on at once. And that always delays the clear out. And then they've got the pre-season game. So he had 5 weeks to turn it round, which, from a groundsman's point of view, in a high-end stadium like that, it's heart in the mouth stuff, that is. But he did it in 4.5 weeks. He used a pre-germinated seed as well, and after 4 days, actually, it looks as if he could cut it. It's amazing. But the Corrow, or the field top maker, it gives you that facility, once you've cleaned the surface out, to enable you to make these radical changes. So when we're talking about 12 weeks, with the right climatic conditions and the right application, you can actually turn an area around in a lot less time than that. With the Universe reel, and this is the one that was developed for the hybrid surfaces, we started off with a full set, 2 spirals of 10mm blades, which gave you entire surface cover. We then tried taking, this evolved over a period of time, taking every other one off, which gave you an extremely aggressive scarifying deal. So you've got a 10mm gap there between the blades, which is nice. Then we decided, what if we put in a narrower tine? So we developed the 5mm tine and put it on every one. So you got an even closer spacing. The disadvantage with that is that if you haven't got a firm surface, firm soil, or firm root structure, a lot more is going to go up the Swanee on the conveyor into the trailer. So you do have to be a little bit careful. So we developed a 3mm. And that's a small one. Now, with a full set of those little boys on, you end up with a very neat surface. And for the next few slides, I've got pictures of what we have been doing with the Universe Reel in terms of getting rid of an awful lot of thatch or poa and going into the thatch layer and getting air in there. If we go back to the early slide, the little bird and the worm used to make the hole that allowed the air in there. He'd help digest all the organic matter by eating it, and then he'd leave big clumps of pure soil on the surface, which is why we don't like worms. So what we've got to do is to get the air in there without using worms. Now, just making a hole in the ground is not going to solve a lot of problem, but by ripping out the poa, you can help greatly along those lines. We did a lot of research and a lot of testing with grounds managers, course managers all around the world to develop these blades, these thicknesses of a blade. And the bulk of the work is done principally in the United Kingdom, but we do travel across into mainland Europe and North America. They call it finesse mowing in the States. They always have to have a word for something, don't they? And you can intricately set the machine with its 4 adjusting pillars, so you're getting a precise depth right the way across, whether it's a 1.2 metre machine up to 2.5 metres. You can get a precise depth and rip out an awful lot of the organic matter that's laying around on the surface. And again, we discharge this straight into a trailer. So we're very, very keen on this surface hygiene thing. I keep referring to it, but it is important. If you're just using a machine over a green, you've got high-speed metal going around, you're dropping sand straight behind it. What's happening to all that seed, all that poa seed? Because it will be in there. And it's just my belief that a lot of it is just regenerated and exacerbates the problem that you've got. Remember, poa breeds thatch, fortunately for us. There's the Universe Reel, and that is working on a field what we would call phrase mowing. We're not actually going down onto the soil, but we're just slightly above it, and it's ripping out an awful lot of the unstable surface. Now, you can get this reel in a 1.2 metre machine, which you can pull quite comfortably, providing you've got a creep box with a 40-50 horsepower tractor, and all you do is to run something alongside it. So you can clear out your worst patches on any fairway, golf green, tee box, without running yourself up a big expense and creating an awful lot of aggravation amongst your playing members. That is like a heavy-duty scarifying. This is with 3mm blades in it, and it's going down into the surface, and you can see all those bare patches where that's ripped out an awful lot of the poa. It just plucks it out the ground. Look at those gaps. Now, I was there when they were doing this, and I walked over beforehand. Unfortunately, I didn't take the pictures of with the poa in the ground, but that, believe me, is on an area where there was an awful lot of poa annua, and with the 3mm blades in, it just ripped it all out. Now, you've got air going into the soil there because we were engaging with the soil while we're going into it. So that any organic matter that is in there will start, or hopefully start, to decompose. Now that, with a 10mm blade, this is a really aggressive way of doing it, a 10mm blade on every other holder. So you've got every 10mm, you've got a 10mm, and then you've got a gap of 10mm. So it works like that. And again, it rips out a huge volume of stuff. You don't realise until you see your trailer how quickly it fills the trailer up, how much stuff it's ripping out. And this would recover quite well without you doing anything at it, providing you'd got the time. But generally speaking, what you do is when you've done that, you go over with seed and top dressing. So it would recover even quicker. That's with a 3mm blade on every holder, giving a 7mm spacing. So whatever area you're doing, you just need to walk over and decide how aggressive you want to be. Or if I could put it, how many of your members you want to piss off. But you can do it progressively. You don't need to get too aggressive straight away. Ideally you should, but you need to be brave. Now for the ones who like to do it little and often, This is a standard proven scarifying reel that we've been using since we first introduced the field top maker into United Kingdom 25 years ago. And it consists of rows of blades that have got very close spacing. You've got 1.5 or 3 mil, and you can go up to 50 mil deep. Now, we've been using this on sports turf, golf greens, tee boxes and all sorts for a huge number of years. And the advantages it has over other methods of scarification is that you've got a fixed blade. If you're using a flail mower with a scarifying reel in, it's okay, it does a good job. But bear in mind that those blades are hinged, and when they come to something they don't like, they do have a tendency to fold back. This won't. This can rip up your green. If you haven't got a stable surface, you want to hurry slowly. Keep trying it. It can be very aggressive. And this is the sort of result. Unfortunately, that doesn't come out too well because you can't see how deep it's going. But that is going quite deep, 30, 40 mil. And if you've got a good stable surface, then it will accept it. Now, in there, you could spread on after it root zone, but you've opened up the ground, you're getting air in there, and you're debilitating the weed grasses, and you're raking out an awful lot of thatch. And even with a 1.5 mil blade, you will be astonished at the amount of material that comes out. This is just a picture of a field top maker working on a golf course on a tee box with the scarifying reel. Now, we've actually got the thing wrong here. It said 1 month after scarifying a fairway. It was a week after. I know, because I was there. And we've just done it 2 ways. And you don't do it at right angles. The second pass is usually done at 60 degrees to the first pass. Carry all the material away. You can even give it a brushing if you want. You can top dress or seed, depending. Or you can just allow nature to take its course. It depends exactly on the environment that you're working in and how aggressive you want to be. Again, how much you want to piss off your golfers. Not that we make a habit of doing it, do we, really? But here's one working on a green, and this is where we've most commonly been asked to demonstrate, because they always take you to the weakest green. I remember there's a greenkeeper in here today that took it to his worst green to demonstrate a machine. Where is it, James? And because he's here, I can tell you we ripped his bloody green to bits, because there was very little root growth. It was a bad green, and we put sand in it with a sand cap. And it was a lot of piss-taking going on. He didn't let me forget it for quite a number of years, but in actual fact, a year later, that was probably a good green again, wasn't it, James? But we do tend to get asked to go on the worst greens and the worst surfaces, and if you get too aggressive with it, if you want it in too much, you are going to find an awful lot of your green going up the conveyor. So it's a little and often. So you can do it every year or twice a year, just a little bit at a time, until you strengthen the root structure up, get the grass growing again. But again, what you're doing is taking all that rubbish away. You're not leaving it on the surface where you can get disease. All the seed heads drop the seed and start to grow again. Get rid of the problem. The more you aggravate it and leave it on the ground, the greater the problem is going to be next year. No longer can we just reach up into the spray chemical booth and get the chemical out. And until this clever enzyme that one of the big companies is working on comes along, we're reliant on mechanical thatch control. In America, they're starting to find now that they can't use, or well, in Europe, we can't use that spray chemical that kills chafer grubs. And where you've got a lot of thatch, you're going to get a lot of chafer grubs. And we've got the machine that you can control that with, but it works on brute force, really. It squashes the buggers. But it works. It isn't the chafer grub that causes a problem. Of course, you've got the birds coming on for the chafer grubs, and that makes another big mess. So if we eliminate a lot of the thatch, we are going to help control that problem as well. So there we have a green that has been top dressed. You can see on the left those are the pictures of the green that's been scarified. And on the right, we've got where it's been top dressed, and an ideal time to put some seed in as well. But the seed of your choice, not the power. Remember, the power's gone up the conveyor into the trailer. As an alternative, and this is a machine that we've developed from a sweeper collector into a scarifier sweeper collector. Again, it comes back to this surface hygiene. Now, this machine is called a rotor sweep. The rear scarifier, rear is a moon. For some reason, the Dutch decided that they were going to name all their machines after a moon. Don't ask me why, but that's what rear is. I had to research that because even they didn't know. So what we did, we fitted a scarifying reel in front of the sweeper itself. It's not a cheap machine, but it's something that you can do a little and often. You can go out every other day and do a section of a fairway or a tee box or even a green. It works very well. The surface behind it is immaculate when it's finished. All the rubbish has gone into the hopper. That's what it is in profile. And you can see at the front there, we've got all those hardened tips, centre to centre, 46 mil, 43 gap. And you can go up to 50 mil deep. Just a little aside, we sold one of these to Real Madrid. And we'd installed most of his equipment, but this was one that didn't get installed. So, bless him, he rang up and said, I want to set this machine up, what do I do? And the boss, in his own way, told him over the phone what to do, how to work it, and he rang back in about an hour and said, it's not working. Well, what's wrong with it? Well, I don't know, but it's not working. Have you done this? About 4 or 5 telephone calls, which was amusing to anybody that was in the same office listening, because there was more and more exasperation getting into it. And my boss is from the north, like, you know, so we don't brook this sort of thing very well. And the last comment I heard was, well, have you looked in the hopper? I don't know, I'll go and have a look. And he came back and said, yeah, it's 2/3 full. Now, the machine was working, but it was working quietly, and there wasn't a trace of anything behind it. And Paul said, I never thought, I just looked and I thought, well, surely there'd be something done. But he was just going into the surface of one of his practice pitches, and he was collecting everything. And he's now using that as a weekly tool for his surface hygiene on his pitches. It works extremely well, and it will suit an awful lot of people out there. Unfortunately, it don't come cheap. Now, as a result of the experimental work and development work we've done, we've travelled with these things over to America, and there's a chap been talking earlier on today about the Olympic course in Brazil. Well, we've been out there with a field top maker. That was part and parcel of his project out there. Apparently, since then, things have got a bit pear-shaped, but that's Brazil. And with warm season grasses, that they stoloniferous, they call them, don't they? It's couch grass. If you grow that sort of stuff, you get a sack. But over there, they think it's the mutt's nuts. And they like to keep ripping it out, because if you think Poor Annua produces a lot of thatch, you see the stuff that they work with. It's like walking on a mattress sometimes. And this Universe reel has ripped out a lot of the stolons, and you can get right down to the soil again, and then you get the new growth. Of course, you have to keep doing it because it grows laterally. It's worked exceedingly well, and we have great hopes for it, but when you see some of the grasses, oh dear, the knife is sharpened and ready. I've nearly done.
Okay, good.
We've been using traditional methods over there, verticutting and top dressing, but it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It helps it to be managed. With the field top maker with the Universe reeling, the precise nature of the machine makes it work so well, and 95% of all thatch remove is in a single pass. So where you've got a lot of fescues, a lot of the linked courses still have a lot of fescues that grow laterally, you could use that reel quite happily to its maximum performance and relieve yourself of an awful lot of problem. So, I've just about kept to time, but there was one thing I sort of just wanted to finish off with, really. And we all remember when we all started off in this trade, and you're always aiming for the top, and you always are told by all on the sales courses or training areas that went, you want to soar like an eagle. But I'll leave you with one thought. It's all right to soar like an eagle, but remember, weasels don't get sucked into jet engines. Thank you very much, gentlemen. If anybody has any questions, we have 2 minutes, and I'm near the door. Well, I've either done a damn good job or you've all been asleep then. Thank you, gentlemen.